Right, so I think one of the things that I really wanted to address today is this inflection point that many of us have as we're growing an enterprise company, which is a problem of scale and how do we begin to approach scale, and how do we build our product marketing organizations. I'm really going to be thinking about this very much through sort of an enterprise B2B lens, and the sort of the subtitle of what this presentation could be is how do you build a difference between a product marketing organization and try to layer on what we call a solutions marketing organization. And I'm really excited about this topic because I've noticed that in the afternoon as well, there's this topic about product and solutions marketing that's coming as well. And I'm glad that this is becoming more and more a part of the conversation, which is sort of what is the nuance and difference between these things. And hopefully between myself and I believe Misha is giving the conversation this afternoon, we might be able to triangulate on something appropriate here for what we mean with solutions marketing. And today the approach that I'm going to take is an approach of doing it as a case study. So rather than just sitting up here and thinking very abstractly about sort of what are the big concepts, I'm going to be talking very practically about what were our problems and how did we do it. Of course, there's a lot of a danger about the approach of a case study. Some of it is it's just not applicable to certain people. You're not in that phase of growth. You're not in that stage. But for some of you, hopefully, you can glean some nuggets around things that are like, hey, this is really useful for me. I'm going to steal that idea. I'm going to take this and this and this from the presentation. So I hope it can dig a little bit into the how and the challenges and give you something that you can work with. I'm going to try to figure out how this thing works, and good luck to me. Okay, so the agenda. I'm going to start out with what was our challenge? What was the issue that our company dealt with? I'm going to give you a before and after story. What did we look like before? What did we change to? I'll give you some of the rationale behind it, and then we'll talk about the details. What did this mean for us? What's the scope of work, and how do we start to divide these teams up? So I'm going to just get everybody centered on who is Bazaar Voice, who is the company that we work with, and this will give you some context as to the challenge. So Bazaar Voice is a company, one of the OG folks here in Austin that was one of the first kind of tech companies to go public, really focused on ratings and reviews when ratings and reviews was only a thing at Amazon. We were the ones that kind of did it for everybody else outside of the Amazon system. So we started with ratings and reviews at a time when ratings and reviews was something that people were like, holy shit, you're gonna let customers talk about products publicly? Like, no way. That was a really scary idea. Today it's pretty commonplace. Questions and answers, obviously letting people talk about things and letting brands answer those questions for all to see. And number 3 was sampling. We put your product in a box, we ship it to somebody new, and we ask them to put a photo or a review or something back in exchange for that as a big part of your new product introduction. How do we get new product launches really working well? So if you think about kind of the company as it started 18 years ago, for 15 years of this company, it was about these 3 products and getting really entrenched, particularly to some of the biggest brands and retailers in the space. So like when you go to Walmart, when you go to Target, when you go to Adidas.com, all of those ratings and reviews are powered by this company. But at a certain point, the company wanted to grow. And for 15 years, we had 3 products, but then the question became one where as we went from a public company to private equity owned, and then from private equity to other private equity, there's this question of how can we diversify our product lines? How can we sell more into this enterprise client base that we have? How do we continue to grow the market cap of our company? So with that, we started with a whole bunch of acquisitions. And this is where I think a lot of you may eventually run into something similar, whether it is through your own innovation that your company drives internally or whether it's through M&A work. But we started with this core e-coms SaaS platform that I mentioned before, and syndication. Syndication is just when Adidas gets a review about a shoe, we send it to Target so that when you're looking at Target.com, the same thing shows up. Adidas sells more shoes at Target, everybody's happy. So we kind of had these like 3 very core things that we offered people. And then we sold those sampling boxes, remember? So we went and we acquired a company called Influencer. And with that came about 12, 13 more ways that you could go get people products, whether sending them into a store to go buy it and get reimbursed for it, whether we're gonna start looking at influencers to try to like get people that have big social media followings. We've got a whole bunch of different styles of boxes. We've got a lot of different things that we can do. We basically acquired about 12 new products that we could offer our client base. That we call content services. How do we help you get content from people outside of those people that shop on your website, right? Your CRM is only so big. Then we went in socials. Everything's happening on social. Social platforms stop becoming just about social, but they start selling, right? We see social commerce becoming a very big thing where people are checking out and buying products in social media. So we went and we bought another company that deals with getting UGC and photos and videos from social platforms, and that gave us another 12 products or so that were a part of that platform. So Bazaarvoice, over the course of about 18 months or so, went from 3 products that we sold for 15 years to about 30 products in 18 months. And let me tell you, that hurts. That is very difficult to grow that fast. Not only that, we were selling to different people in different personas. So we started selling to social media managers. We didn't really know who they were. We sold to e-commerce managers at the time. We also have brand managers that are thinking about how do we promote the brand, how do we promote new product launches. So all of a sudden we've got 2 new personas in the mix as well. Scale is difficult. So how did we begin to think about this internally? As of right now, we had 3 companies. If you're tracking with me in my story, we had 3 companies that became one company. However, they were all operating in silos. They were all individual islands. And some of you may find yourself in this position at some point in your career. So we had 3 different messages that were brought to market. We had 3 different demand gen engines and programs that were going to market. We had 3 different sales teams that at the time, many people are very product-led sales. We've got a great ratings and reviews platform. Let me tell you about how we differentiate and the value of ratings and reviews platforms from what it can do for your business, right? Let me tell you about a social commerce platform and what it can do, right? Like everybody kind of had their own very product-driven sale. And number 3 is that we had 3 very different product roadmaps, none of which was talking to one another and none of which was connecting the dots between how do we allow people to see a holistic picture. So this was our challenge. How do we create some kind of messaging hierarchy and framework that tells the story of these 3 companies coming together to create sort of an added value that's greater than the sum of its parts? Right? This is a story that you're looking to tell on the back of some of this acquisition work. How do we create efficient marketing campaigns that actually don't have overlap and waste associated with kind of, I've got just programs that aren't talking to one another? How do we have a unified sales method where instead of having 3 sellers selling to one account, we had 1 seller selling multiple products in a suite, sort of a holistic view that creates a more efficient revenue organization and engine? And then how do we create a holistic roadmap that actually begins to get these platforms to talk to one another so that we have a single view? That's our challenge. And of course, product marketing, this is I think this image is probably everywhere in some iteration at some point. Everybody's got a 3-circle Venn diagram with an arrow pointing to the center saying that's product marketing. I'm gonna fall trap to that same thing. Sorry to be so cliche, but that's really kind of where we were thinking. How do we sit right here in the center? So let me start with team structure as you begin to scale. So the product marketing team was very focused, and you may find this in your own companies. You have somebody that is like the product or product portfolio of like ratings and reviews. I have a product manager for Q&A, thinking about that. I have a product manager for our sampling boxes. We have a product manager for our social. We have a product manager for our analytic services. And their job is to think about the product lifecycle of the individual product line. They are thinking about how do I create really good go-to-market? How do I talk about my products? How do we message them? What are the differentiator of those products when we get to that kind of conversation? And we were thinking about how do we build a solutions marketing team that sort of sits on the horizontal axis, right? If we're thinking about these sort of big columns of product marketing, we're thinking about how do we create a team that is not bound by any one product, but sits across products to understand how they work well together. And the important thing is that it is a false choice to say you must do product marketing or you must do solutions marketing. We intentionally set up 2 separate teams inside of a structure that does have a VP over the top of it, of a product and solutions marketing team, because it is important to do great product marketing and to have a conversation about your products that says, I can tell you why we're better than the rest of the competition when you're saying, talk to me about ratings and reviews. But when somebody comes and says, okay, who's Bazaarvoice? What are you? Like, what do you do? What are the things that are here? How could we tell a very different story that sits across all of our products that is not necessarily a very product-led, a single product-led story. And you can do that in a couple different ways. We start to think about things in terms of client segments. Sorry, this is one of the problems when you start building in all kinds of different platforms and then share your thing, so sorry it looks a little messy here. But client segments is one of the ways that we think about organizing it. Mid-market, enterprise, SMB, how do we start to create a framework that lets us think of kind of industry and industry segment first? Do we think about it in terms of industry verticals? Are we approaching things via apparel companies and via food and beverage or CPG or pharmaceutical? Is that a different approach and framework? Or what about personas? Social media managers? What about e-commerce managers? What about brand managers? How do we think about the products and services across all of our portfolio of 30 products? What resonates the most with that individual persona? So really, it's about kind of creating this conceptual framework and kind of layer on top of all of your products that you can begin to simplify and organize your conversations so you don't have to pitch 30 products, which is an absolute messy, horrible thing that I don't recommend doing. So this idea of creating frameworks, right? This idea of could we think about our different industries and industry verticals and think about the personas and how they map across those industries? Could we think about it maybe in terms of what is this persona, how do they function, what do they need in a small business versus a mid-market emerging business versus one of the world's largest enterprise clients thinking about world global domination? Okay, well, this gives us an organizing principle that we can think about the solutions and the organization of all of these products together, really driven by persona and industry and client segment. And our product marketers, what do we think about this from a metric standpoint? I think the team that was just here above really talked a lot about what are the things and really attaching yourselves to revenue, right? So these are the big three that our product marketing organization are very, very, very deeply entrenched in thinking about. Their product line bookings, their product line adoption numbers, are more people adopting it over time, or are we churning business, right? These are the big three that we want this team to focus on, is bookings, adoption, and churn. When we think about our solutions marketing team on this horizontal axis, we are thinking about upselling and cross-selling. How do we begin to get somebody started? How do they land? How do we expand that account? How do we get them onto other product lines? How does that make people more sticky for us and churn less because they are more integrated with us as a business? So what are the adoption rates of multiple products? And are we able to attach multiple products in a single contract? And as a result, average contract value goes up. So this is where we're starting to think slightly differently, really what are the same metrics, but through a little bit of a different lens of how we're holding our product marketing and solutions marketing team to slightly different metrics to keep them focused on the right thing. And one of the things that's really important here, and I'll caveat this for anybody that's like building solutions marketing team or some sort of enterprise portfolio team, whatever you want to call it, there is an issue that we want to make sure that we're also not slamming and shoving 7 or 8 products down somebody's throat that they don't need. So this idea of churn is an important one, because if all of a sudden you've got 30 products to play with and you've only been selling 1 or 2 in the past, you could get a client in a situation where they have been sold 8 products, but they're only using 2 of them, and then you see 6 products churn in 12 months. Like, that's not a position you want to also get yourself in. You want to think about scaling that appropriately. So that's sort of one of the ways that we think about churn. So what does this help us accomplish when we think about restructuring teams? I think a couple things are really important. Number one is that it frees up our product marketing team to do excellent product marketing and not have to worry about certain things. It allows them to focus on the excellence of the life cycle of their product, the product features and functionalities, the launches that they support, giving feedback about those products into our product organization. And it also allows our solutions marketers to get out of the din of the go-to-market cycle of like every quarter I've got to sit in some go-to-market meetings and gate meetings and dependencies because I'm launching the next iteration of this product, right? So if we can say, hey, solutions team, you can be thinking about market expansion and vertical work, like we don't have to sort of burden certain teams and we can focus them on particular areas so that no individual team gets particularly overwhelmed about things. And I think that hopefully these guys will keep me honest later down the road. You can tell them, ask these people if I'm totally BSing right now or not. And this is the world they experience, but hopefully they will feel a sense of like, okay, I've got a team that's responsible for doing certain parts of the product marketing job. I can focus on this section of the product marketing job, and I've got support along the way. So really, a couple of things that we want to focus a solutions marketing team and sort of this enterprise cross-selling and upselling team to focus on are a few different points here, and I'm going to dig into each one of these a little bit more. First is, I did look better, I promise. First is that it's sort of a holistic messaging framework. If we think about the early days of Bazaar Voice, I think the corporate marketing team was really focused on what is the mission, what is the vision of the company, what is the brand position, all of that really kind of heady corporate market work that happens. That was in place. We had a really, really, really good product marketing organization down at the bottom that could articulate the value of their individual products super well. They kick butt at that. They do a great job. But there was this layer in the middle, this sort of portfolio layer that was a bit spongy for us, I would say, that wasn't really well articulated, right? This idea of the greater than the sum of its parts story. So this is where the solutions marketing team decided, okay, we're going to come in and think about this like middle layer here, which is what is the elevator pitch for this new Bazaar Voice, right, that has 2 additional companies incorporated into it. How do we then think about the bigger differentiation, that's the company's differentiation, rather than the product-specific differentiation that's available there? And then what are the larger thought leadership trends that our company wants to play in? And that's a great place that we've focused on being in partnership with our marketing organization, is to try to say, okay, these 5 big emerging trends, whether this for you is metaverse or IoT or whatever, social commerce is one of the things that we really specialize in. How do we think about layering that on? And then this solutions layer here that we see in red is how do we create, again, a messaging framework layer that is there to simplify the 30 products that kind of roll up into it. So how do we take 30 messages and make them 4 or 3 was really part of the challenge here. So the way that we started to think about it is that we have many products that help you collect content. You have trouble going and getting content outside of the people that show up at your website. You may struggle to get videos. You may struggle to get questions and answers happening. Doing that at scale is tough. And doing it for all the products that you may carry, every single shoe at Adidas, tough stuff. So we have a bunch of different products that do a variety of different things that help you ultimately collect more content, because when you do that, customers love to see it. How do we help you moderate that content? How do we make sure people aren't swearing when they're writing that review? How do we make sure they're not putting illicit photography that you don't want that's going to ruin your brand image or cause some big PR kerfuffle? How do we moderate and authenticate that to make sure it's not fraudulent? Okay, well, we do that really well. How do we syndicate content? How do we get one piece of content that's been written at adidas.com or a photo that was there? How do we get it to social? How do we get it to all of the retailers? How do we get it from place to place to place? So sort of amplification effect. And then how do we analyze it? Ratings and reviews, questions and answers. What a phenomenal voice of the customer program we have, right? You can learn so much about what people are thinking about your products just by listening to what customers are saying on your website. So how do we roll that up and give you insights? Now, all of our products nest under these 4 things. They will do one of these 4 things for you. So now all of a sudden we have a much easier framework that we can say, hey, look, at Bazaar Voice, we do 4 things really well. Rather than saying, we are a ratings and review company, we do this. We also have social commerce, we do this. We also have this, we can do this. We can also ship sampling boxes, right? Whoa, what an endless litany of products. So we also align this to our product management teams. There are teams then that start to think about, okay, how do we collect? How do we moderate? How do we do X, Y, and Z? This will allow us to align ourselves to the way that the product team is developing, and we can feed into it. And it also helps us meet some of the quarterly launch process. Many of you may have this available to you, is that you start to think about sort of very structured quarterly or at a certain regular cadence, you do product updates and product launches that may be a drumbeat drumbeat, but let's say we've got 4 products or 5 products that may have a new innovation coming for this particular quarter's launch. Well, now all of a sudden that fits into first our primary bucket is talking around content collection. We've got a whole bunch of things that help you collect content now. Here's the thought leadership pin that we want to be writing content for and creating this demand gen engine. Here's the differentiator we're going to lean on as a business and why people should come to us to do that better than anywhere else. So this provides a framework that we can work with our demand gen, our content marketing teams, and the rest of the people across the business to really simplify and say, look, this is our launch, right? Like this is what we're talking about. These are the products that nest under it. And it creates a very nice framework for us to have a conversation. The other thing that our team focuses on is this idea of mapping cross-selling and upselling. So depending on where you are, you have a different journey. You may start with one of 30 different products, and how do we get you to use as many of those as possible? Where do you land? How do you move? And then what are the campaigns and messages that we give to the individual people along the way to make sure that they're graduating the way that we want them to? So creating cross-selling and upselling maps and the requisite things like marketing campaigns and messaging campaigns that come across it. But really, this is part of what this enterprise cross-selling and upselling team is thinking about. Data and research is a big part of what our team is thinking about owning and providing back to our business is how do we take a look at the data, let's say a total economic impact when you're using multiple products versus the impact of a single one. How do we think about retention when you're using multiple products or a particular segment data for X, Y, and Z industry that may have a certain selection of what we offer. That then feeds into a pricing and packaging exercises, which is how do we then start to manipulate our pricing and packaging according to some of these frameworks, whether that be persona in industry, and can we create a package that instead of it being, I'm going to sell you a good, better, best of product, the social product, and a good, better, best of ratings and review, and a good, better, best of Q&A, could we maybe break that up and think, okay, for this industry, we have a basic package that includes Q&A, ratings and reviews, social, analytics platform, and then that has a good, better, best, right? There's different ways that you can conceptualize and create pricing and packaging along the way to also suit these different sections of the market as well. I spoke really to the thought leadership piece and working with the demand gen team, thinking about where do you sort of etch out this larger company vision and really pinning down and saying, look, these are the 3 places we are going to be experts in. And all of the solutions frameworks that we've created, this collection, this moderation, this syndication, this analysis, are the differentiators of why you should choose us to solve the issue of, let's say, emerging social commerce trends and how you as a business should show up. Right? This allows us to think about how does our solutions framework kind of nest under there to be that differentiation. And then lastly is expanding TAM. So rather than just like, how do I expand the TAM of people buying ratings and reviews, how do we expand the TAM into SMB, a very market-focused approach, right? How do we think about this for the SMB segment? How do we think about this for the grocery vertical, for instance? Allowing our team to really think kind of more broadly across the entire portfolio to really think and build business cases to the business. And this is something that, when I was mentioning earlier, freeing up people's time. When you don't have a team that's responsible for the continual drumbeat of innovation and the go-to-market that happens with product X, Y, or Z, they're now able to step back and say, okay, I'm going to take 3 weeks to build a business case to go back to our executives, right? I have that luxury because I no longer have to do the day-to-day sort of excellence that some of the other team is responsible for, right? So it allows that team to work and have a little bit more lenience to think about some of those business cases. Ultimately, I am making all of this up. This is all made up. Everything that I just said, we invented it, we have no idea what we're doing, we're trying it out. So please take everything I said with a huge, huge, huge grain of salt. I totally BS this whole presentation. This is what we're doing, by the way, it is real, I'm not just totally faking everything. But my point is that you're creating a conceptual layer, you're creating a framework, you're creating a team, you're creating something to address a problem. And the thing that I will constantly come back to as a North Star for me as a manager and leader in our business is this idea that if you have a really good idea, which I don't, and you give it to a mediocre team, they'll screw it up, right? But what I've given you is instead a very mediocre idea. And I give it to a very, very, very good and excellent team. And they fix it, they throw it away, or they come up with something better. So that is my challenge to you, is that I've just given you a very, very mediocre idea. But your challenge, please fix it, throw it away, or come up with something better. Thanks.
And Colin, we'd love to do a little Q&A. Of course,
Not going anywhere.
We know the drill by now. Pop your questions into Slido, upvote the ones you love, and the most votes get to the top of the screen. The top question here is, how do you suggest the product market people and the solutions marketing people work together instead of their own silos?
That's an excellent question, and one that, in retrospect, I will include in future versions of this presentation. That was a big gaping hole. Thank you. So typically, we work on that through the product launch cycle. So the product marketers, for me, are the pillar on which solutions marketing rests. Like, we do not have anything if we do not have a good partnership with them. So they are the ones working deeply with the product management team to understand the new innovation that's coming out, what's happening with their products, what's going on, where are they looking, where can they grow and expand as a business, and the opportunities that they see. And then during that incremental, what we have a quarterly launch process that's set up, we are listening and ingesting all of the product marketing innovation that's coming in and trying then to adjust our messaging accordingly. So we have to remain reactive to the innovation that our product marketing team is feeding us, and then we would change on top of that. Sometimes we'll add a layer and say, okay, great, you've got a bunch of really cool stuff happening. Here's how it nests into some of our thought leadership. Here's how it works with creating some sort of layer and framework for those quarterly launches, so that we have something consistent for our clients that, like, hey, we're gonna really be talking about social commerce innovation for the course of 3 quarters, and like all of the stuff that you're doing is gonna nest into it. But ultimately, solutions marketing team really, really, really is the one to ingest the innovation that's coming from the product marketing team. Hopefully that's helpful in answering that.
Yeah, here's another great question. How do your solution marketers interact with customers? Mm-hmm. And in that customer interaction, how does that compare with the PMM counterparts? And if they're not directly interacting, how do they prevent from becoming detached?
Yeah, so there is a general sense that regardless of the team, being an expert in the voice of the customer is important, right? Our product marketers that are in charge of solution or social commerce tools or sampling tools, they need to be in seats with our customers, understanding why are you buying, what's going on, what are the problems that you're solving. The same thing for our solutions marketing team. We either piggyback onto those same calls, or we will call up different clients that may have 2 or 3 solutions that are working together, and we'll go talk to them about what is the added benefit, why are you thinking, how are you letting these programs work together? So we really have the exact same customer interaction and level of customer interaction across the board. We do client interviews and ingest and to really understand what are the problems our customers are trying to solve, just like any particular product marketer may be. While our product marketers may be focused on, I really want to understand how you're using social tool X, Y, and Z, we may be thinking about how are you using these 7 products to really like hit this revenue goal, or like how are you thinking about emerging trend X, Y, or Z, and how Bazaar Voice can fit into that. It's really just a different level question, or the same question through a different lens a little bit. I kind of liken our teams as in a way we're both just looking through opposite ends of the telescope a little bit. Like we're trying to look at the same thing and interact with customers in exactly the same way. So that discipline of being a product marketer or solutions marketer, of talking to your customers, ingesting that, is exactly the same across both teams.
And I think we have time for one more. You touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to just get a click down into what are the KPIs that you measure against for each of these teams? Yeah, so that's a really good question. There are, really at the end of the day, that roll-up that we talked about, bookings, adoption, and churn being the things that our product marketers are really thinking about for their product lines. Thinking about the main metrics and sort of KPIs are like cross-selling and upselling, adoption rates, attachment rate per contract, average contract value. Those are the types of things that we're really looking at being the main metrics and sort of KPIs that our solutions marketing team tracks. So rather than being single product focused, it's more portfolio focused.
across all of the suites of products.
Awesome. Let's give Colin another hand.
Cool. Thanks, Ed.